Well, hello. This is Karin Zoe Lee, and you're listening to Lotus Moon Productions. Welcome to LMP Music. Whatever the music, whatever the tune, we're here to learn, discuss, and promote the independent music scene. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the next 45 minutes as Shugo Hanasaki tackles the music industry one artist at a time.
Welcome back to the independent music side of Lotus Moon Productions. Last week we spoke to Orion from Thought Being, so please catch up on that for your latest synthwave fix. And this week we're back to speak to another artist from Aztec Records. If you're unfamiliar with my guest of the hour, he's a synthwave artist from Australia that has absolutely smashed it with his debut album Calypso Drip FM. He's a multi-talented artist who composes his own music, writes his own lyrics, and has collaborated with many synth artists such as Yardu, Primo the Alien, Ace Buchanan, Jordan F., just to name a few. And as of a couple weeks ago, he joined Primo the Alien and Yate on Primo's live stream extravaganza on YouTube. And that was absolutely awesome in my opinion. I highly recommend checking it out. So without further ado, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome the one, the only, Gryff to the podcast. How's it going today, man?
Hey, real good. Yeah. Fantastic.
I guess I should have said, how's it going in the evening over there?
Yeah, I was going to mention that it's quite late over here, but I guess being in Australia, you have to work around time zones, and I guess a lot of the people in the scene, especially in the interview scene, they're in the UK or America, or like you in Canada. So it's just a bit hard trying to organise all these interviews.
I'm very, very happy that you've made the time to speak to me. I mean, it's really funny. As of the recording, it's 9 a.m. here, and 20 years ago, waking up at 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning was to watch cartoons and Saturday morning music videos. And now, 20 years later, I'm speaking to the artist himself.
Oh, that's cool. What kind of cartoons did you like to watch?
Oh man, back then it was like there was Power Rangers, there was Digimon, there was oh man, just I can't there's so many different animes that were on Fox.
Yeah.
And there was just a bunch, but the two that come to mind are Digimon and Power Rangers. Like I couldn't get enough of them.
Yeah. Cool. I used to watch Power Rangers like a lot. Hey, as a kid.
Nice.
Loved Power Rangers.
Tommy Oliver, the best guy.
He's the Red Ranger?
He's been the Red Ranger, he's the Green Ranger, he's the White Ranger, and the Black Ranger.
Oh Jesus! I didn't know that. There you go. You've watched Power Rangers more than me then.
Oh yeah, I'm a classy nerd.
Okay. Yeah, good.
So before we speak about your debut album that was released in September and dive into your music, I was hoping to get to know your background a little more. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Like, I was curious about what it was like growing up in the 90s in Brisbane, Australia. What were some of your favorite things from that era? I mean, I imagine growing up in the 90s was very different than it was here in Canada, but as we just discussed, we both watched Power Rangers.
Yeah, so I didn't grow up in Brisbane my whole life. I grew up in a place called Perth, which is in Western Australia. So that's 3 hours behind, I'm pretty sure. And because I lived out in the country a little bit, we didn't really get all that brand new, exciting TV stuff. We had a lot of old TV shows and old media. So yeah, I was kind of like behind the curve when it comes to discovering new stuff or discovering what was current. But I guess that was pretty good because I got to listen to a lot of like 70s and 80s music growing up. TV shows, nothing really amazing. I remember having to buy Pokemon on VHS, and there was a lot of like trips to the video store, which is like, we didn't really have Blockbuster back in the 90s. We had a place called Video Easy and Civic Video. So yeah, I didn't really get the same sort of romanticized childhood that you see in like 80s movies, or a lot of these synthwave guys are like, oh yeah, I had this like really great movie discovery childhood. I was kind of like behind the curveball in terms of finding new stuff to watch.
Well, that's pretty cool though about Pokemon. I mean, the Pokemon was definitely one of those Saturday cartoons too. I mean, it was on almost every single day over here, but one of my first VHS copies of Pokemon, I think it was The Mystery of Mount Moon with Clefairy.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I remember going to the shopping center that we had, and there were like, this is back before like you could pirate VHS tapes and just resell them, and people just wouldn't get in trouble. So yeah, all of my Pokemon like VHSs were all very, very dodgy, just like re-recorded from some dodgy guy in the stall. So yeah, so that's how I got to watch my cartoons.
Ah, youth.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty good. And then like as I grew up, I think we got Foxtel, so I got to watch all these like new exciting TV shows, which is really sick.
I think 90s cartoons were like one of the best.
Yeah, I mean like I think I grew up on Street Sharks and SWAT Cats. What's some other ones? Yeah, can't really remember. Extreme Dinosaurs. And then like yeah, I couldn't get into Digimon. I don't know why. I think because I was such a massive Pokemon fanboy. I just watched Digimon and was like, nah, I've already got this. It's Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it was the storyline for Digimon for me was better than Pokemon, but the games itself were better for me than Digimon and the trading card game. So this conversation is just now about Pokemon and Digimon. So
Yeah, yeah. I was about to talk about like so in Australia we have our own sort of like 90s cartoon ecosystem because like American cartoons weren't that big here. Like we always had especially in the country we had all these like weird obscure 90s TV shows that kind of had this Australian tinge to it. So yeah. We probably should talk about synthwave instead of 90s cartoons because I could talk about it for ages.
that's a whole other podcast. That's exclusive to other members of
Yeah.
the podcast. It would just be
Yeah.
a whole podcast of you and I speaking about the 90s.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you've spoken about how you've gotten into creating music in previous interviews, but for new listeners or
Yeah.
people unfamiliar with your past, could you briefly explain where your creative drive came from, how it came to be, and what or who was your inspiration when you were younger to become an artist? I read that Duran Duran, Michael Jackson, and Phil Collins were some of the few inspirations. Could you please expand upon that?
Oh, sure. I guess so with this like I used to borrow my dad's cassette tapes all the time, and I guess his scope of music was really like anything sort of big in the 70s and 80s that was popular in Australia. So for a time, I think it was just like basically a lot of Australian 80s music, which is still good, like artists like Icehouse and Men at Work, Divinals. So I was really into that, and then it wasn't until I watched I think like when you're a kid and you watch like Disney movies, like when I watched Tarzan and heard the Phil Collins soundtrack on that, I was like, wow, this is really cool. I love this guy's voice. And then I played GTA Vice City, and I think that just opened up a whole lot of corridors for me. There's something, I don't know what it is, but there's just something about 80s music that I it really resonated with me, even when I was super young. Hey, but yeah, watching like playing GTA Vice City and like flicking through all the radio stations there just like opened me up creatively to all these amazing bands. And then I instead of playing guitar, I ended up buying like a really cheap synthesizer, which is a DX. It's a Yamaha DX21, which is like the baby brother of the DX7, which is a really popular synthesizer. And I guess from there it's just history. I just just really loved synth music from then on.
Speaking about history too, can you believe it that it's been 30 years now since Phil Collins first released his first song?
30 years. Oh, I was about to say I thought it was old, like way older than that, but I'm just thinking about him when he was in Genesis. But yeah, I didn't know it was 30 years. There you go. What was the first song?
The first song, one of his most popular ones, "In the Air Tonight," it came out in 1981, and now it's 2021. Crazy, eh?
That is, where was that his first
Oh,
song?
40
Surely
years.
that, surely that's, is
40
that his
years.
first song?
Yeah.
That's wild. Imagine having like your first song be "In the Air Tonight" and have it be so massive. That's crazy.
Yeah, how time flies.
Yeah, yeah. I reckon he must have had something special. I reckon he like heard back like recording that song and gone, yeah, this is it. This is my magnum opus for sure.
Yeah, all these years later, I mean, it's still one of my top favorite songs, and there's so
Oh,
many remakes and covers of it that it's just amazing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's so good. Just the textures and the drum machine in the background, like so. Oh, it's just incredible. I think yeah, that's why the '80s was so good to me because it's where you've achieved so much with guitar work and analog instruments and stuff like that, and then you've gone, how can we how can we like improve on that, or how can we like look to the future, like how Giorgio Moroder used to talk about. And then like, yeah, Phil Collins is like, well, I can play the drums pretty good, but what if I played the drum machine and did that, and just fantastic. And I'm pretty sure the In the Air Tonight was one of the first songs where gated reverb was used.
Okay.
Yeah. Gated reverb, it's like the whoosh snare sound that everyone uses now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, pretty sure Phil Collins like was around when that was invented. Like I'm pretty sure it was like a part of like the recording. I think it was like with Peter Gabriel.
That's really cool. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I only know a little bit of history with Phil Collins, but even learning more is just awesome. But this interview is about you.
Oh, okay. I could also talk about Phil Collins.
Yeah, second podcast in the making. All about Phil Collins, all about 90s. So getting back to your music, how would you define your style though to new people? With a flashy pink blazer, creative beats, and artwork that creates an amazing aesthetic, I can only imagine that you have one hell of an amazing imagination. And to be more specific, what can listeners expect at a Gryff, and how did that look come to be?
I definitely emulated a lot of stuff from GTA Vice City. Playing Tommy Vercetti and going, oh, that's so cool. Look at him in his suit, and like he's just like. The protagonist and all the rest of it. I think like I just took that. Like, also from Miami Vice. I think watching Miami Vice going, oh, Jesus, look at those guys, they're so cool. And I remember when I was first getting into music and writing my own music, I didn't want to be too cool, or I just like, I'm too cool for outfits and stuff. And then I thought, you know what, like I want to write music that evokes this sense of nostalgia, or sense of like you're listening to something that was written in the 80s. So I think I just doubled down and just went, you know what, I'm just going to do the whole package. I'll write awesome tropical sort of like synthwave, synth pop. I'll make it bubbly. I'll make it like really happy and groovy and stuff like that. So yeah, have a look. I think it's one of those things where like when I was looking at artwork for the album, it kind of just sums up what I want to get out of my music. I want a swimming pool. I want palm trees. I want that, I want that Testarossa. And yeah, I think that just sums it up. I think just either show someone a photo of me in a pink jacket or just show them the cover of my album. And that kind of just sums up what I really want to get out of my creative venture, which is music.
That's awesome, man. Now, with more and more artists adapting sounds from the 80s and that synthwave sound, it seems synthwave is taking the music industry by storm lately. Like, what about it continues to feed your creative process, and why that synth style specifically?
That's actually a good question. I think synthwave obviously has to ride on the hype train of nostalgia that's always going to sort of like be popular. Like, you look to like Dua Lipa and The Weeknd and what they're doing, even David Guetta, they're bringing it back sort of thing to bring it into the public eye. But I think there's always going to be a microcosm of people who look towards the 80s and really love what the 80s have done. So I think that's what does it for me. Just the nostalgia, the nostalgic explosion you get when you listen to like a synthwave song and you go, wow, this person really has done their research. They, you can tell when a synthwave song is authentic, because like you listen to the artist and you go, yeah, this guy loves the 80s. They know what they're doing. They spend a lot of time producing it. I think that's what does it for me. It's the sense of nostalgia and the sense of escapism you get out of synthwave music. And you can go like super retro, you can go super cyberpunk futuristic, but when it all gets summed up, it's a feeling of nostalgia and a feeling of escapism that I think is like the essence of synthwave.
Yeah, I think briefly there in one of my previous podcasts there, I think it was with Dana Jean Phoenix, we were talking about the feeling behind synthwave and how there's just something passionate about it. Like you hear real, like despite having synthesizers and making artificial sounds, at the same time when you add in those guitars and you add in those drums, there's something just emotional and passionate about it, no matter what it comes out as. Like I was speaking about kind of like even instrumentals are kind of like an opera where you hear it back, but and you have no idea what's going on, but you can create your own narrative.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing with synthwave music, especially like when I write a track, I always will either write it to a scene out of a movie, or I'll watch like a movie I've never seen before, but I know it's from the 80s, and I'll try and write like a song to go with it, either as like a end credit song or a romance scene. So yeah, and I think a lot of synthwave songs, like it's it's the partnership between something that looks like and sounds like it's straight out of an 80s movie, because I don't think you can really have a synthwave song without it having some sort of visual aesthetic to go with it.
I completely agree, man. I completely agree. Now, thank you so much for that, Gryff. It seems we've learned a lot about your past. Now, getting back to the release of Calypso Drip FM, as promised, we'll be sharing a few 45-second preview tracks from the album to give the audience just a taste of what to expect. So before we share those tracks, could you tell the listeners your inspiration for such a retro, unique, and fantastic album? I know you've shared a little on previous interviews with the State of Synth over on Night Ride FM back in October, and your interview with Vents Magazine back in November, and to anyone who hasn't listened or read, please go check that out at your earliest convenience.
So with Calypso Drip FM, the inspiration from it was definitely GTA Vice City, and also the fact that as a 90s kid, again, I used to have this like tape deck, which I think I bought at a garage sale because I really wanted to just listen to tapes. And then I could figure out that I could just put blank tapes in there and make my own radio stations. So I guess that's where the idea for Calypso Drip FM came from, was having an album that you could put on start to finish, go for a 45-minute drive, and it'll like track your drive, basically track your journey. But it was also the inspiration of recording radio stations of songs that I loved, and having my own like radio station cassettes that I had at home. So I think that that really just sums it up for me. I just really wanted a 1980s radio station, and then I just packaged it all up into an album. And I was really worried about it, actually, because I didn't think people would like it. I didn't think people would like the idea. I thought people would have found the idea to be a bit cringe, but I'm surprised that it's been so well received. And Aztec Records signing the album is like massive, and just the response of people who like love the album and understand what I was trying to do with it. It's really, really affirming to me.
Yeah, well, it definitely works for me. Like on my favorite time to listen to the album is a Friday afternoon when it's sunny, or Friday evening, because when in the album when it says you're going into the sunset, it has to be a sunny afternoon on a Friday or a Saturday. And it's just it's the best thing to listen to in the car. And it's absolutely fantastic. The album checked all of the boxes, in my opinion, and having Karan Zoe Lee being part of it, who also does the intros for my podcast as well, was just icing on the cake. And collaborating with Primo with your track raised the bar even higher.
Oh, Primo's amazing. Hey, like what she's doing, and like she's just like a no bullshit, I'm going to have fun, I want to do my music. And, she's just a powerhouse in the scene. And she's a powerhouse in, like, her own respect of the music that she makes. Like, she's not just assigned to the synthwave role. You listen to her music and, like, it's adjacent to so many other genres, Prima should be way bigger than she actually is. Like, I don't know, it's just, she needs that, like, break. She works so hard, and her music's so amazing. And the fact that she, like, came on board for Calypso Drip FM, I did not expect that. Hey, I expected like thanks, I'm too busy or something. But the fact that she gave me a chance, and we ended up writing like a really amazing song, it warms my heart, and it's one of the most proudest moments of the album for me. I think Reverse, where it's placed in the album is perfect, and I really, really, personally, I'm so proud of that mix. So, because I mixed it all myself, and I just really think it's really good. And I just want, I'll definitely use it for like references for tracks going into the future, so I know like what I did for Reverse, and that's a formula I need to like do awesome synthwave tracks. So yeah.
I couldn't agree more with how incredible Primo is, and she definitely deserves more attention, and hopefully she'll get it very soon. But let's start off by sharing a quick clip of Reverse featuring Primo the Alien, and then we'll dive into the background of that track. How's that sound, Gryff?
That sounds great.
All right. So without further ado, here's Reverse by Gryff featuring Primo the Alien from the album Calypso Drip FM. One thing that stands out the most in that track is the sax throughout it. It just relaxes you in the best of ways. The song itself is a beautiful, unique love song. How did collaborating with Primo come to be, and what was your inspiration and perception of that track?
I'm just trying to remember if it was I think I was listening to The Midnight a lot, and I remember writing the other tracks for the album thinking, wow, I really need to do some sort of emotional, passionate synthwave song. And I started writing this song called Reverse, and originally it was just going to be me singing the whole thing. And then I came to my senses and went, no, this needs female vocals. It's such a romantic, passionate song. It needs needs that element of love, I guess. And I reached out to Primo about it, and I was like, hey, here's this song. I'd already written the chorus, which is, kind of about time travel and wanting to start again and stuff like that. So it was kind of like super sci-fi in that way, but still quite contemporary. And Primo, she got it straight away. She wrote she wrote the second verse, and it was like, oh, she just nailed it the first time. She sent me one vocal sort of package, and that was it. I didn't have to get her to re-record much else. It was incredible. She just nailed it first go. And the saxophone. So the saxophone guy, his name's Fabian. I'm trying to remember his name. Fabian Hernandez. He's just this great saxophonist I think he's got a Grammy Award as well. So yeah, and I just had a chat to him and went, hey, I want a really roaring ripper saxophone solo. And I gave him some references, but the main reference that I wanted him to use is M83 Midnight City. So if you have listened to the end of the track of Reverse, it's pretty much like the emotion I wanted was the emotion of M83 Midnight City. So yeah, and I think that you can hear it. I don't know if many people pick it up, but yeah, that's exactly what I wanted the roaring saxophone solo to be. I wanted it to be that huge fade out, drive into the sunset, end credit sort of thing.
Well, you definitely nailed it. Now, did Fabian do the sax for the entire album?
So Fabian did the sax for Reverse, and then for Do You Feel Like This? I originally was going to do the saxophone, but then I took it to... So that's the only song I took to a off-house studio, and we discussed, hey, why don't we bring a live horn section in to really give it that Latin feel that it needed. And so we did that, and that was the horn section for a Brisbane band called Fat Picnic. They're like a reggae ska band. And then the saxophone on Voyager is me. So
wow, I mean, yeah. So he could play the sax as well.
Not that good, only a little bit. I really want to get better at saxophone, but I just don't have the time to sit down and practice saxophone at the moment. If I can do some tooting on the sax, I will, but if it's too technical or too hard, I'll either get someone else to do it, or I've also got a VST, which is called Embertone Sensual Sax, and everyone in the scene uses it. And that's a saxophone that's on Jesse.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so that's not real sax, that's sampled.
Well, I have to say, for the record, that playing the sax is one of the most sexiest instruments on the planet.
It is. It really is. Saxophone is like super sexy. Yeah. Regardless of gender, it's like it's just a sexy instrument.
It definitely is. Now, speaking of Primo the Alien, I mentioned earlier in the podcast that you are part of her mini live stream concert on YouTube. You showcased 2 tracks such as New Religion and Jesse, which Jesse was my first song I've ever heard from you, which is kind of crazy. But not only because of the amazing aesthetic that you created within your performance, but the colors that you put into that performance as well, I think were incredible. Like, how did that live stream come to be?
It was Primo and Yate. Is it Yate or Yate? Oh no,
I think it's Yate.
Oh, I hope it is. They're gonna kill me because I talk to him a lot. Don't even know his band name. Yate. Yeah. So Primo was like, oh hey, would you be able to get together a live stream performance? Give me the video before this date, and then we'll put it all together and we'll premiere it on New Year's Day. So yeah, and I just got my so the guitarist. His name's Gus. He's got like a cool bedroom studio, which is way bigger than mine. And yeah, I thought it was just a really good idea to go to his house. I brought some of the lights that I'd made, set them up. We had like a small camera crew. And yeah, I think we only had like 2 or 3 camera angles. And then I just edited it all together at home and put some cool little cyberpunk effects. And yeah, it just really came together.
Now, will there be any more online concerts from Gryff in the future?
I'd love to. It's just a matter of, I guess, finding the time for it, finding everyone to get together and do like a little performance. Because as much as I love live stream performances, I think that people do them too often, and they need to be like a spectacle to me, because I think it's just hard. It's hard to try and be like, hey, we've got a performance coming up. Everyone jump on Instagram or jump on YouTube and watch it. If you're going to do it, you need to do a high production thing. Like the video that Yate did and the video that Primo did was like incredible. That's what you really need to do. So I think if I was ever going to do another live stream, it'd have to be high production, full band. I don't know, dancers. So yeah.
Well, after your performance of both of those tracks, you definitely had me wanting more, and that's the secret. You always leave your audience wanting more.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Well, I mean, like I've got a bunch of tracks that I'm working on now, so yeah.
Now, you told everyone after the end of those both tracks, see you in 2021 with a preview track of what I can only assume is new material. Could you tell the audience a little bit more about it before we continue with Calypso Drip FM?
It'll be on the new album, maybe, if I like it. That's all I can say. Yeah, that song is really, yeah. I guess I've been working on a lot of tracks for like whatever I'm gonna do next. I don't know if I want to do like a cyberpunk EP. I don't know if I want to do a full album. I don't know what I'm gonna be doing next. I'm just gathering all the music that I really like to write. And when I write songs, I don't usually stick to one genre. As you probably you hear on Calypso Drip FM, it's kind of slightly varied. Like it's kind of like they're still synthwave songs, but it's like on different ends of the spectrum. So what I'm doing right now is just writing a bunch of songs, finding the songs that I'm like, yeah, this will stand on its own as a single, or people really love the song. And then once I get it all together, I'll either package it as an EP, or if I get enough that I really love, it'll be the next album. So, but yeah, that song that was on the preview of the live stream right at the end, it's probably going to be on the new album.
Sweet. I cannot wait. Another one of my favorite tracks off the album that always pulls me out of a bad mood is Hollywood View. I remember you saying with Bent's Magazine that a lot of your lyrics have this love song slant to it, but you're often disguising the true meaning behind a facade of romance. Would it be possible to expand on that?
Sure. Do you want to talk about Hollywood View in particular, or like in general?
Absolutely. Definitely Hollywood View, but we can definitely talk about in general as well.
Sure. I guess with Hollywood View, it's definitely like Hollywood View is pretty obtuse and I guess literal. It's about really wanting to have that one last night, or see that person that probably you're not together, or they've moved on from you. And it's that feeling of like longing and passion, and it's like I guess that's where I was writing that song when I was writing it. Basically, that's where my mind was. But songs like, Jessie, which sounds like a really particular love song, that's about someone who, wants to be uploaded into a system so they can have eternal consciousness. And then Landslide's about, like, what happens to Jessie after that happens. And then Dreams is like kind of sounds like a love song, but Dreams was me telling myself that, I really love writing this kind of music and I shouldn't really listen to anyone else or feel weird about writing something that's, not as popular as like other genres at the moment. I think that's it. But yeah, definitely Hollywood View. Not like, it's pretty literal, but yeah, it's not just like a love song. It's like, it's more of like a post breakup song, which is like a lot of the songs on the album are kind of like post breakup songs.
Well, let's give the audience a taste of that track as well. So here's a 45-second clip of Hollywood View by Gryff from Calypso Drip FM.
All I ever wanted was a piece of the night and a Hollywood view. Is that what you want to? I see you down there. It's nice to know you again. Hold me with the lights down low. Take me away. It's nice to know you again. Feeling you again real slow. Feeling you again real slow.
Now, getting back to Jessie just briefly, I have to say the sax in that song, I know we mentioned the sax a little bit before, but the sax in Jessie just crushes me in the best emotional ways possible. Like, as you say, Jessie going into a virtual reality kind of thing, and the continuation of it through Landslide, but the fact that you're able to add that much emotion into one song, I find is incredible.
Oh, thanks. I remember writing that. I think that was like one of the first synthwave songs I wrote because it was originally released in 2018, and I think that's the sort of time where I was discovering like the big synthwave bands like FM84, The Midnight, Ollie Ride, Dana Jean Phoenix, all that kind of stuff. And I remember listening to The Midnight, and I really loved Nocturnal as an album. But particularly like one of their songs, Vampires, really like stood out to me. And as soon as that saxophone hit in Vampires, I was like, oh Jesus, this is like so emotional, and it's just like this rush, this wave that like rushes over you. And I knew when I was writing Jessie, I was like, oh, I need to write something similar to that. I need to have to make sure this saxophone solo hits hard. People listen to it. It's the first thing that like plays in the track after the intro, to like capture what I was trying to say with the song. So yeah.
Well, it's no wonder I love Jessie then, because not only was Jessie the first track that I heard from you, but Vampires was the first track I ever heard from The Midnight.
Oh wow, there you go. What a coincidence.
Yeah, that wrapped up perfectly.
Yeah.
And finally, the final track I wanted to showcase from the Calypso Drip FM series that didn't make it to the album was All Night. So jumping back to 2018, this song gets me buzzing every time I listen to it, with sounds from what I believe is Yoshi. What's not to love?
Yeah, this is like way before I started writing synthwave songs. I started just sort of like looking at genres that I loved and sounds that I loved, and I really loved the kind of music that like the vaporwave community was making, and future funk as well. Yeah, I started writing All Night, and I remember looking at samples to put in to sort of the feeling of joy and the feeling of celebration. And yeah, I think I was working on some other music for another project, and I had all these Super Smash Brothers samples, and I found the Yoshi ones, and I really love the Yoshi sound. And I think I was listening to a future funk song called I can't remember. It's by Young Bay, and he uses a Yoshi sample in it. So yeah, I decided to use the same sample, and yeah, it worked really well, I think.
I think it worked well too. Every time I hear the song, I'm bouncing, man. I love Yoshi. I love Mario. It's great.
If I ever do a like Calypso Drip Deluxe album, it's probably going to be on there.
Sweet. Now, do you mind sharing why it didn't make the album? Because I imagine the creative process behind deciding what tracks make it to the album and what tracks are left behind is pretty tough. Will any of the tracks that didn't make it, will they be available to fans for future purchases besides the deluxe album?
Yeah, absolutely. So like the tracks, it's so hard. I still think that 13 tracks on Calypso Drip FM is way too much. Songs like Hotline almost didn't make it, and Landslide, almost didn't make it as well. But I'm happy with what I've chosen. But I'm still kind of like annoyed that the track listing for an album needs to be sort of like the status quo in terms of what albums need to be. It needs to be like in the 9 to 10 track mark. So yeah, songs like All Night, All Night was going to go, I think, near Do You Feel Like This, because they were kind of written in the same studio. But yeah, all the songs that didn't make it on the album that aren't available for purchase or streaming will, most likely come out on either the next album, future EP, or maybe one of those like lost tapes sort of like EPs that artists do. Like they go, oh, these are all the songs that didn't get anywhere, so we'll put them on this. Like those tracks will definitely be out for streaming and purchase later on, sure.
Sweet. I cannot wait for that to happen because I'm going to be purchasing anything that you release. Not to sound like a fanboy or anything.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, no, that's sick. I'm glad.
All right, so with enough hype of that song, here is a 45-second clip of All Night by Gryff.
I'm wasting my time waiting on your phone call. I'll wait all day and all night long. Hot nights, I'm taking my chance to mother lovers. All night, baby, all night long. I wake to the heat of the night. I need you to find your way. I need you to find your way. Need you tonight, and I fear of getting lost in your highways. I need you to find your way. I need you to find your way. I need you tonight, and the tears on the dance floor, blood on the asphalt.
Now, at the beginning of the podcast, I mentioned quite a few artists you had collaborated with. Are there plans to collaborate with more in the future? And are there some artists you would love to collaborate with that you haven't had the chance to?
I don't want to talk about the collabs that I've got, just in case it like doesn't work out or these people want to keep it a secret. But there's a bunch of guys and girls in the synthwave scene that I've reached out to, and we're working on some really cool stuff for the new album or the new EPs. I think I've already kind of let it slide that Seisha, me and Seisha are working on a collab which is sounding fantastic at the moment. I've also got a remix EP of Waiting Up coming out in February that I haven't announced yet. So, and that's got heaps and heaps and heaps of really cool artists on there, and artists who aren't even in the synthwave scene. There's a few like future funk artists that are on that. So, yeah, that's super exciting. But in terms of people that I really want to collaborate with, big one, The Midnight, Ollie Ride, Droid Bishop. Would love to collaborate with Power Glove, Cloud. There's so many artists in the scene that I'm just like, just to collab with them and see their process and how they write music is pretty much the main reason why I want to collaborate with artists in the scene. But yeah, just to have them feature on a song of mine is just amazing.
I think any of those names would be absolute magic. I mean, if I heard any of those, if it was Gryff featuring any of those names, I think I'd freak.
Oh, well, we'll see. I'll hopefully if that ever comes to fruition, then yeah, you'll hear about it because I'll be promoting the hell out of it.
And I will be retweeting the hell of it. Now, besides the Waiting Up little EP, remix EP that's going to be coming out, what can your audience expect out of any future releases? Because I remember you mentioning something about Blood Void on Twitter, maybe a feature EP release.
Yeah. So generally when I start to write music, I'll start with an idea or a creative like loop or something like that, or a bunch of tracks that really sums up what I want to do. But as soon as I start with a little idea, I'll start thinking about what this could belong to. So I remember writing a few cyberpunk tracks, which is absolutely way different to Calypso Drip FM, and I went, oh, if this was an EP, what would it be called? Like, what kind of world or universe does this song belong to? I think I was like reading a lot of cyberpunk stuff or sort of futuristic novels and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, it'd be cool to do something robot inspired or something transhumanism inspired. So I thought, if I made an EP of cyberpunk songs, what would I call it? And I was playing around with words and stuff, and I think Blood Void just stuck. But yeah, I mean, that's just a working title. It's probably not going to be called Blood Void, but I think that's the type of music that I'm writing for that sort of little project at the moment. But I mean, on the other hand, I'm writing a bunch of songs which are inspired by 70s like retro futurism art, like Roger Dean and like Journey and like prog rock sort of prog rock artists like Yes and Supertramp and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a few things I'm doing. I'm still going to stick to synthwave, but I just love sort of like reaching out and dipping into like different ideas of like where the adjacent genres of synthwave are. Like I really love that 70s prog rock, synth rock stuff and that futuristic cyberpunk stuff. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm going to go with the next album or EP.
Well, I mean, keeping to your FM series, this could be like that cyberpunk futuristic Blood Void XM.
Yeah, well, I'd be lying if I didn't already play around with the idea of continuing the FM sort of thing. So like when people buy my albums or vinyls, it'll be like different radio stations. I'm just worried that it might be too, if I start writing like radio stations, maybe I'll become like locked into that and it's just sort of it's a creative struggle for me to decide what I want to do with my album. And if I do want to make it like what is it called? Not a franchise, but like a saga sort of thing, like make it like in episodes. But I really just I really want to do the FM thing, but I'm just worried that it might not be as good the second time around.
Well, you just got to go with your gut, and I mean, you went with your gut with Calypso Drip FM, and you knocked it out of the park. So I have no doubt that whatever you decide to do will be fantastic.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Well, hopefully I make the right choice.
So speaking of the Blood Void EP on Twitter, we have a preview of that release exclusively for everyone to listen to. So as our final clip of our little chat, here is Genesis by Gryff. Now, with about 10 minutes or so left in the podcast, switching gears from the music discussion, what other interests do you have? What sort of things do you like to do to promote self-care? Any favorite foods or TV shows or even movies?
All right, so I think favorite foods, like I really love a good steak or sushi. I'm a bit of a health nut at the moment because I like to go to the gym a lot. As long as it's sort of like healthy and tasty, I'll eat it. So I try not to do junk food too much, but I think my guilty pleasure is definitely fried chicken. I can't get enough of fried chicken. I don't really drink much, but if I am drinking, I usually drink gin and tonics. I just find them really refreshing. Yeah, cocktail-wise, a Long Island iced tea, so I'll drink that. I know there's a martini on the cover of my album. I don't really drink martinis anymore. I think they're a bit too strong. But yeah, in terms of like hobbies and stuff, music takes a lot of that up for me because I find writing music to be very therapeutic, and I find writing music as like a really good conduit to get out what is on my conscious as well as my subconscious. I feel it's very, very cathartic to just sit down for a few hours and write stuff, and even if it's an instrumental, that's like your brain and your heart just like pouring out into what is essentially like a diary, but it's like, oral. Other than that, I enjoy artwork, and I enjoy drawing. Like, I do a bit of art for people in the scene, and I'm starting to get into that a bit more. What else do I do? I love hanging out, I guess, hanging out with people. Oh, I love movies, so cinema-wise, I'm a massive cinema nerd. Anything sort of like, fringe cinema, I'll definitely love. Anything sort of like 80s inspired or cyberpunk inspired, I'll watch. Yeah, I don't know if that's boring or interesting, so but that's just me. I feel like I'm recording a dating video, actually.
Well, you're on Lotus Moon Productions, and we want to hear all about the sexiness of Gryff. Definitely a dating website here on LMP. I mean, speaking of hanging out with friends, it's one of my favorite things to do. But of course, times have been tough this last year. But I mean, do you have any advice for anyone struggling within these troubling times? Like, how have you kept yourself focused?
I definitely say phone calls. I think phone calls are underrated in a time where everyone just wants to text message or DM people and stuff like that. But I feel like, I personally have always loved phone calls, receiving and giving phone calls. I think there's a certain, part of the human emotion that is attached to the inflections in your voice when you use the phone. So I feel like if you're really struggling with human connection at the moment, like, giving people a ring or, asking people if they're keen for a chat, I think that works. Another thing is learn something new. So during the lockdown, I've been teaching myself artwork, and that's really helped me. I've taught myself production, like getting my production to the next level or enhancing it in certain ways. So picking up a new skill, which is really cool. Anything that you've sort of wanted to learn or something that interests you, definitely pick up a new skill. And I think the third one is fitness. I've tried focusing my energy on fitness and stuff like that. I get to look better, I get to feel better, and it's your body's a machine. You have to sort of like use it to get the most out of it. And yeah, I think that's the main three. Just human connection, even though you may be isolated, learning a new skill, or being exposed to something new, like a TV show or a movie or some music that you've never listened to. And yeah, just like getting a little fitness regime. I think that's a really important thing to do.
I think that's fantastic advice, especially the phone calls. I mean, people think I'm crazy nowadays in 2021, but phone calls are one of my favorite things. Like, throwback to me being 12 and 14 or even 10 years old, being on the phone for like 2 or 3 hours with my friends from school. And then I'm like, get off the phone. We got to use the internet.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know why people are so turned off phone calls. It's this, I don't know. Maybe it's like a Zoomer thing. But as a millennial, I love phone calls.
Yeah, they're one of my favorite things out there. It just I love it. I could spend hours on the phone even now, being 31, and I have it the time of my life.
Yeah, good.
So for all the synth lovers out there who just can't get enough, do you have any shouts or suggestions for other artists that you're currently listening to?
Oh yeah, definitely. So definitely get on Alpha Chrome Yayo. He's on Twitter and Bandcamp. He's just fantastic. The amount of albums he puts out and the amount of textures and effort he puts into all of his albums, and he puts so many albums out. It's crazy. So definitely check out Alpha Chrome Yayo. Check out Aztec Records. That's the label that I'm assigned to, and they've got heaps of really good artists on there. Like Lau is really great. I think Nina's on there, Thought Beings. Yeah, all of these amazing people are signed up to Aztec Records, and they do a lot of good stuff for the scene. Also check out Xenon's new album, so Xennon. His last album was fantastic. He's got a new one coming out. And also check out Primo the Alien. She's just released a single called Bad Things, and it's just really good. Her production value is amazing. She's just, like I said, I could talk for ages about how good Primo is and what she's doing in the scene. But yeah, there's so many more. I've been listening to a lot of future funk, so Strawberry Station, Young Bay, some another synthwave guy called Avenue. He's great as well. Jesus, I could list artists a lot. But if you want to just have a look at, if you just go to my Twitter, I usually retweet, and then I'm following all these people that are really loving the scene, and yeah, so that's probably the best way to sort of get what I'm listening to at the moment.
Well, thank you so much for that. A lot of good names there, especially Zenon and Primo the Alien and that Bad Things shout out. I won't spoil the video for anybody, but I found that video truly cathartic.
she's definitely very, very she's very loud in terms of what she believes in, like emotionally and politically, and it's kind of like a lot of artists, they want to stay apolitical and stuff like that, but it's a testament to Primo's the value of her own emotion and where she her ethics and where she wants to be as an artist, to sort of like wear her art on a sleeve and say, this is what I believe in and stuff. So it's actually it's courageous stuff, like, to be doing that in especially in a scene that's so online. So yeah, she's yeah.
Well, absolutely. And with that, we will wrap things up. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, Gryff. I had an absolute blast.
You too, man. I had a really good time, even though it's midnight right now. So I'm still awake. So yeah, I might work on some new music. And thanks so much for the chat. And yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and Spotify and YouTube and all that good stuff.
Thank you so much for your socials, and definitely be sure to follow Aztec Records as well on Twitter too for more synthwave content. As for our socials, you can find us at SoundCloud under Lotus Moon Productions, Facebook under Lotus Moon Productions, Instagram under Lotus M Productions, Twitter under Lotus Moon Prod, and you can search us on YouTube under Lotus Moon Productions. This has been LMP Music. Please be safe, everyone. Please be kind to one another, and with that, we are signing off.